How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Today we're going to talk about leadership traits or behaviors for correctional staff. Now, mind you guys, this is going to go a little bit beyond what you're used to hearing. I know sometimes we talk about traits. Some people may discuss intelligence, self-confidence, determination, integrity, social ability. Again, that's great, but I want to provide something that goes beyond just those words. I want to provide context. I want to provide behaviors that will help people become leaders. That means that, guys, traits that we're going to discuss right now or behaviors, they can be taught. They can be learned. And that's the key. That's why I'm doing this video. I don't want to make it look like that these traits are something you're born with and that's it. There's nothing you can do. You're either born to be a leader or you're not a leader. That's not what this is about. In corrections, we have what they call emergent leaders or emergent leaders. These are leaders that just learn, they grow, and then eventually they start to pick up some pace and people start to respect them. And we have 10 leadership traits or behaviors that I think definitely apply to working in corrections. We're going to go ahead and break them down and then relate them to our world. My guest today is going to be Russ Hamilton, but before I bring him on, let me just go over our sponsors. First sponsor we have today is American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to get a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections, also very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. So again, guys, if you're looking to get a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. We also have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That book is on the market, doing well, used for training all across the country. The link to that is in the description. And we also have, this is pretty cool, my book is available for pre-order at Blue 360 Media, How to Succeed in Corrections, Lessons Learned While Working in a Prison. Guys, this book has been revamped. It's good, guys. It's got so much information, not just for myself, but a lot of other people that work in the profession. So, guys, if you get a chance, please hit the link in the description. Get the pre-orders now because I don't know, if these copies are going to be widely available. I don't know. I'm excited, but I don't know how many are made at one time. I don't know. Or either way, just get the pre-orders. Just get it so you make sure you have it. I think that's the key. And again, the link to that is in the description. And when you're there, you can check out the other books that Blue 360 Media has. All right, guys, let me get Russ Hamilton on. What's up, Russ?
Anthony, how are you doing, sir? How's it going?
Yeah, doing good, hanging in there. Hey, Russ, you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Not at all. My name's Russ Hamilton. I am a former and retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I have also worked as a senior correctional officer in a juvenile system. I currently work as a case manager for a local jail and a local probation department for a private company that contracts with them. And I love everything correctional. I am also the founder of Keepers of Chaos on Facebook, where we seek to help people that are in the profession learn how to do their job better and to provide them with content and history of this great thing we call corrections.
Yes, now this is going to be a good discussion because, guys, as we've evolved in understanding what leadership is, at one point people used to do what they call a trait approach. Basically, you were either born a leader or you weren't. Obviously, that's changed. Obviously, people can learn to become a leader. And this goes way past just people that have been assigned to a leadership position. This could be for people that we work next to who just have leadership qualities or they grow into that leadership position. And I'm excited to do this because, again, most of the videos on leadership traits, they usually base it on the same traits, intelligence, self-confidence, determination, integrity, sociability. I mean, the list goes on. I think what we're going to provide today is going to be like actionable things. This goes beyond just the one word. These are actionable things. But Russ, you agree, right? It used to be back in the day, you either had these traits or you didn't.
Yeah, I think that it got to the point that perhaps sometimes in the past where everybody just only viewed a few traits, and they viewed people to be kind of only in an archetype, where there's actually a lot of different people out there that can lead in a lot of different ways. And just thinking that there's only one model that we should look at, only the Patton model or only the MacArthur model, for lack of better terminology, when the fact is there's a lot of talented people out there that can do this in a lot of different ways. So I don't think it's good to only think about things from inside the box, inside the main paradigm perspective. I think that now we have a lot of really good people coming on that are bringing a lot of value to the profession in a lot of different ways, and I'm hoping to see more people filling those types of roles.
Yeah, guys, in these traits or behaviors, these are going to be more practical. So I think when we go over them, we'll kind of give you some advice as where it applies, and then you could try to see where this fits best. So the first one, Russ, and I do believe with this. And by the way, guys, again, just to repeat, you could be a leader whether you're assigned a leadership position or whether you're just an emergent leader. Like, the group sees you as one, and whether you have a title or not, they kind of give you that leadership title. And granted, I this applies both to those that are assigned a leadership position, where if you're looking to grow, this is a great avenue, or this will help those looking to be emergent leaders, where you're hanging out with your group of people and you start picking up on some traits in which that they look at you and say, you know what, this person has the ability to step up within the group and definitely represent the best of this group's prototype. All right, so the first one we have, Russ, and of course I put him in there, so I'll have Russ go first, and I'll feed off Russ because Russ really hasn't seen these yet, as always. So let's go. Let's surprise.
Yeah,
Russ.
my lack of preparation is caused by you.
Yes, hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. But
I don't know. I'm better. Off the cuff anyway. But let's see how I do.
But Russ, you're a leader, adapt and adjust, baby. All right. So
yeah, that's it, man.
All right, Russ, I know you agree with this. Drive for responsibility and task completion. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's something that, a natural leader should hopefully be doing all the time. They should be finding ways to delegate out these responsibilities. And when you're able to delegate out responsibilities, the one great thing it does for you, it keeps you from being a micromanager, because what goes on then is your expectation is, as you delegate this responsibility to whoever you decide to assign it to, there's an expectation that they're going to go out there, they're going to adapt, they're going to overcome, they're going to be victorious in what they do, and they are going to, bring you back the fruits of that result. And that just dovetails right there into the whole task completion part too. We want people who are self-starters, that they only need modicum of direction. And so, when you tell, officer A, B, or C out there, hey, you know what? I need you to, go make sure and see what's going on in the yard with regard to our STGs, and bring me back a report. And, boom, they know what to do. They know who to talk to. They know what to look at. And they have no doubts about what it is that they're doing. They have a high level of confidence, and they get the job done.
Russ, I love what you said. Like, for me as a leader, if I am in a leadership position, I delegate authority to complete the task. I don't delegate task. I delegate authority to complete it. I love when, if I have a concern, I don't have to micromanage individuals to deal with that concern. Basically, this is what I got going on, and they come back with the solutions because I've empowered them with some level of authority to handle that concern. So I love what you said, that, because I know a lot of people who micromanage, who really just delegate the task. They don't delegate the authority to complete the task. And what happens is people have to go to them every step of the way as you progress to try to get the staff done. But Russ, let me ask you a question. Outside of being a leader, outside being assigned a leadership position, how could this also help you emerge as a leader amongst your peers?
Because you're not doing the micromanaging thing, there is really a thirst out there by a lot of individuals, who want to be led. They want people to assign them tasks. They want to be able to go out there and, bring back the red meat of whichever task you've assigned them to do. But a lot of time, if we have poor leadership in there, what's really being done is they're not being given anything to do. And no matter if they're self-starters or not, there may be a limited way in which they can be expected to do things on a day-to-day basis, because sometimes the leadership position is as well, we don't want you out there finding felonies. We don't want you out there finding drugs. We don't want you out there finding weapons. We don't want you out there validating gang members, because it might lead to something consequential. And instead, it's just leadership then, by inaction and by crisis, because then you let all that stuff fester, and then a crisis occurs. And then what are you doing? Then you're scrambling to try and make things work, and you're not being proactive, preemptive, and preventative.
Yeah, and I also want to add something, guys. When you have that drive for responsibility and task completion, I believe your peers are going to see it. I think those are actionable things that your peers are going to see. And I think this is also a great way to influence upwards. Like if you have a supervisor who, gives you a task and gives you the authority to complete the task, I love it when I have people that are solution driven. Yeah, I went through these problems, but these are my ideas to try to solve it. And I think this helps you both in regards to how it translates to your actionable behavior. It helps you provide influence amongst the people around you. But when you do drive for a level of responsibility and task completion, and you're the person that gets the job done, I think you also start to get some influence among your supervisors as well. But I do want to add something to this, because I don't want you to get burned out as well, because again, you wind up having supervisors that wind up becoming really reliant on you, and then they start burning you out because you're the only person they want to give the job to. So having said that, you have to make an effort to try to teach as well in the process. So you're not the only person that's able to do the job. And as a supervisor, be wary. You may have some strong players, but don't burn them out. Please do not burn them out. But again, as I said, I think for the leader, I love what Russ said. Don't delegate the task, kind of delegate the authority to complete the task. And as a peer, I think that this is extremely actionable. It's something that they can see and can also give you the power to influence upwards. All right, so let's get to number 2. You have anything you want to say on that, Russ, about the influencing upwards? Are we good?
I think we're good on that.
All right, let me get to the next one. Vigor and persistence in pursuit of goals. All right, Russ, what do you got?
So, this is one of those things where, there is a level of energy that you need to bring to the tasks at hand because of the environment that we're constantly in. You can't afford to just sit back and wait for things to happen. Although some people would tell you that that's a valid way to do it. Being always behind the wheel on that, though, means that sooner or later, that train is going to run right into you. So what we want is an energetic level that goes forward to the point where, no matter how long it goes on, we're still going to get to accomplishing that goal. And so when we have that type of persistence, when we have that type of energy, it's going to make your particular area, maybe even your particular department or facility, that much safer, because we're exercising that vigor, we're exercising that persistence, and we're making a difference in the day-to-day operations. As I said, just in the last one there, talking about, just sitting on your thumbs and waiting for stuff to happen. If we do that, if that is the way we elect to execute our responsibilities and duties, sooner or later, we're going to wish we hadn't been doing that, because getting out in front and being proactive, preemptive, and preventative in all that we do is going to pay off so much more. But that's just in the safety and security part of it. I mean, there's a lot of other things that come into what our goals are, but that's the main one and the basic one. I mean, there's other things like, what do we want to do? Do we want to foster upward mobility in a lot of these talented souls? Yeah, that's a worthy goal too. And you should be trying to do as many of these different types of goals as you can. It's just easiest for me to pick on the safety and security angle because that's what I've been so invested in. And that's the thing that really kind of has been and stays in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, you know what's funny? So corrections has a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances to branch out, and there are a lot of no's you're going to get sometimes. And I think what I admire from people is they don't stop at their first no. Recently, I was doing some interviews at the job, and throughout these interviews, they kept on mentioning one supervisor. And then when I asked all the staff that we were interviewing, like, why is that the supervisor that you strongly relate to as being a good leader? And they said her persistence, because she tries for every opportunity. She gets a lot of no's, but she doesn't stop trying. And the staff admired that. I mean, they really admired the fact that this person just keeps on going, and doesn't let anybody, I guess, disenfranchise her. And then when I had a chance to interview her, I told her, I said, hey, off the record, you are loved here. And the reason why you're loved, and you may not realize it because she didn't realize it when I told her that, is because of your persistence, because you seem to be involved in a lot of things, but there's also a lot of things that you couldn't do because you couldn't get someone to open the door for you, but you tried another way and another way. So I love that. This person wanted opportunities to grow, and she kind of seeked every chance. And if one door closed, she opened up another one. So I believe that. For me, for goals, I love personal growth. I make sure that I don't leave that in the hands of somebody else. I'm responsible for my own growth. And again, and one thing real quick about vigor and persistence in pursuit of goals, sometimes that could be extremely hard, especially when you're looking for something that you may not be in charge of the outcome. You only may be in charge of the effort or the initiative. But granted, I think when people see you striving for it, even though you may never get that outcome, there's a level of respect that goes with your effort, your exhausted effort and not giving up. So yeah, I think to me that's extremely important. That plays very well in corrections, and also that's actionable 100%. As I mentioned before, that could easily be seen, right, Russ?
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to the next one. I like this one, Russ. You're going to like this, especially in corrections. Drive to exercise initiative in social situations. So you got the leadership perspective. So basically the person that's assigned a leadership position, or maybe we could do also the perspective of someone that is emerging. So maybe one of your peers emerging into a leadership status. Let's just say that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to look at this particular one. There's a lot of different ways to involve yourself in it. One of the things that I like to do with with the people, my underlings, my officers, but even my peers and those above me, if we just like go back to the last one we were talking about, is I like to bring up things that people may not know about themselves, strengths, things being said, that are in a positive light, in order to let them know, hey, they are making a difference. They are doing the job, because sometimes corrections can be really thankless. And so when we're looking at it from that perspective in social situations, that's one thing that a good leader should always do. They should always be trying to reflect back the good things that they've heard about someone, or the things that they've noticed, in their character, in their personality, and in the way that they handle jobs. When we talk about other social situations, though, we should be willing to go in there and lead and instruct and train officers, how to deal with other agencies, how to deal with upper administration, how to deal with inmates, and show them what communication is really all about, and give them a series of tools that they can use throughout their entire career. If you can teach someone how to communicate effectively, There's so much they can do, everything from de-escalation to being able to write up a proposal and make that proposal happen by giving a kick-ass talk to their, not to their peers, but to the people that can say yes or no to that proposal.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you guys, as a leader, or let's say as a supervisor, you got to be able to communicate to your people. I mean, that comes the leadership by walking around. Who's taking the initiative there? You are, as the leader. Your job is to interact, know your people. I think that in corrections, we do have to try to form a bond together, and I think our people that are leaders kind of do that. They walk around, they're able to communicate with individuals, and they're able to connect. And I think that is truly important in corrections in this profession. And it's not easy. That's why, like, I worked with supervisors that were very introverted, and sad to say is I felt them to be a little bit distant when they were introverted, where I felt that there were some that were extroverted, that as long as they weren't extremely extroverted, because that there's a balance there too, but that they were more approachable. And I believe at this point here, we need leaders that are making the initiative to get to know their people in an effort to bring about some authenticity in their leadership. That's a tough word. Now, as a peer, as an emerging leader or emergent leader, I do believe, again, it's understanding what your group is about, which again is about you getting to know them, getting to communicate with them, getting to really be that empathetic listener. I mean, that's the key too, guys. By the way, when you take the initiative in social situations, sometimes that's just asking a question so you're on the other side and listening. But having said that, I think this is very important because this comes with that social ability. If you're not able to communicate and interact with others, I think that puts you in a very difficult position to be able to step up front for them, because it's like, hey, you don't even know me. So I don't understand how you think you have our best needs. So I think that's good here. And also, I want to mention another thing too. In corrections, you're going to have a lot of forced interactions. And what I mean by that is you're working with an inmate population, people that you may not be used to talking to. Again, people that have a different walk of life than you have. So I do think it does take some courage, but it does take some initiative to interact with them and try to build some influence. Just be wary of counter influence. But I do think it takes some courage to interact with some of these individuals. So to take the initiative on that, I think is also something that, again, is actionable. People can see that, that's the key, right? Russ, you think drive to exercise initiative in social situations can easily be observed by the people that are around you, correct? I think even the inmates.
Well, it's essential though to be able to do those things. You talked about someone who's introverted. I mean, that's fine, but you still have to be able to get the information across, and you have to be able to receive the information back. You have to be able to reflect it, and you have to be able to use everything that you've learned in a way that you can take and harness the energy that's in that unit with all of the people that you're over in a way that allows you to make everything safer, more secure, and provide for the things that your people need, which are beyond safety and security. Like I mentioned before about upward mobility. The thing I would say is that if you're weak in this area, or even if you are strong, you should be looking into trying to take some motivational interviewing courses. And just remember that term, motivational interviewing. And it can really set the stage for you being able to really learn how to communicate in an effective way, because it really leverages, when you actually go in and start asking people questions and reflecting back and thinking and picking apart what it is that they're telling you, not just with their words, but with their past and with their body language as well. And so that's one of the things that I use all the time. I have a lot of people on my caseload, And, a lot of times these individuals, they know that they want something. They're trying to proactively change, but they don't know how to, actually get in there and talk to people. And it clams them up. And that's really, that's really counter to what I'm trying to establish with them in order to get them to actually change. So I'll go in there and I'll start talking to them. And it's not formal. I don't have a list of questions that I go by. But as they start to reveal things to me, I start to take those things that they reveal and put them with other little things that they've revealed, and then ask them questions about it, open-ended questions where they can reflect back. And you can do that with inmates. You can do that with staff. You can do that with everyone. So that's something I would suggest for people to be able to really actually get better at communicating.
Yeah, and as I said, I look. There's the extreme of introversion, extroversion. We want somewhere to be balanced, but guys, I mean, these also could be mini steps. I mean, I used to make it my business to, when I was an officer, to interact with people. Maybe one or two different people a day, whether it was my coworkers or whether it was the inmate population. I made it an effort to talk to somebody I didn't usually speak to. That would be more towards my staff, and for the inmate population, yes, if there was a chance to engage, build some information, whatever it was, I did make an effort to go that way. But I think the key for me was, like if I was a GA and I had to do a general assignment GA and I had to do my rounds in which I get a chance to interact with a lot of different staff, I found myself not always sitting at that same table with the same staff members. I would go to another table and just interact and just kind of be, I don't want to say, lack of a better word, a social butterfly, but yes, I want people to know me, but I also want to know them. And I think that carried a lot of weight because as I moved up, there was a lot of just influence that I was able to get, at least from the different staff members that I spoke to, that kind of widened my knowledge into what I know about this profession. Russ, you got something you wanted to say on that? I saw you.
Yeah, there's a principle that I've used a lot, which is getting outside your comfort zone. It's easy to stay at the same table with the same people that day in and day out, and eat the exact same sandwich and have the exact same kind of conversations. It's another thing to go out there and put yourself into those forced interactions like we've talked about, where you're maybe facing people that you're not the most comfortable around. Those people, may not be willing to give you the time of day. They may be tacitly hostile. They may be openly hostile, for that matter. And yet, when we put ourselves into those situations, we force ourselves to learn. We force ourselves to listen better. And it puts us in more of a focused mindset. And we can be much more intentional about what it is that we want to learn from that. We're not just letting it happen to us. We're going out there and we're actually being proactive about it. And so that's why, my recommendation is, your hand should always be up. It should always be up. You should always be willing to go out there and accept a new task, no matter how ill at ease it might make you feel.
Yeah, because again, it's always an effort to learn. That's the key. And as I said, guys, if you keep yourself even surrounded by, the same individuals all the time within that same box, eventually, you're only learning the same thing. So it's good to kind of venture out once in a while, see what's out there in the horizon, and then, come back in and help grow the group, if you will. I've done that. Like, hey, when I used to work second and third shift, there were people I spoke to on second, and then there were people I spoke to on third, and then I would find a way to kind of blend the dialogue so we can kind of share in on our experiences from the different shifts. So next one is, this is an easy one, to risk taking and originality and problem solving, Russ. That's pure leadership potential right there.
Yeah, there are risks that we have to take. Of course, we always have to find ways to mitigate them. Sometimes when we have to do it on the fly, there's no guarantee of success. Sometimes there's a higher degree of failure. But when we look at the things that we're doing with regards to, problem solving, for instance, We had situation at one of the institutions I worked at, me and my partner, where I think we had been on lockdown at one point for something like 6 weeks. And it was just, this constant north-south tension. And, everyone was just bringing the same things to the table. We're going to keep them on lockdown. We're going to control, all movement. And it just wasn't working. And so we kind of decided that what we needed to do is we needed something to break the log jam. And so we went out there and we started, actively developing sources that would point us to who the main trouble workers were. And it was hard to do that. And everyone said that we couldn't. And yet in the end, we managed to broker a peace that actually lasted for a long time on that yard, even though we had, multiple STGs coming in that, were all at each other's throats. And I was really proud of that because, I had taken that and everyone said it couldn't be done. And it kind of took on a life of its own. So, you go out there and you try and innovate and you try and think outside the box and you learn how to mitigate the risks. But at the same time, you got to know that you have to take some. If you don't ever take a risk, the risk will come to you, and it will come to you bigger and badder than if you had actually gone out there and gambled at doing something.
Yeah, and mind you guys, when we say risk, it's usually calculated risk. Don't minimize or negate the experience that's behind the choices you make. So when we say risk, we're not talking about just going at it without, no experience. Usually there's a gut that's telling us go this way. And that's coming from experience and maybe prior efforts. But I also want to mention something too, when it comes to problem solving. As I moved up, obviously problems become a little bit more broader, I guess, right? Because on the administrative side, you got all these different departments. You're trying to bring the house together as one. But I feel that long-term solutions are always something that also showcases someone's effort at really stepping up and being a good leader. Yes, there is short-term, I get it, but I think people that can think 6 or 7 steps ahead, people that can see, what could happen if I go A, B, C, D, E, and are able to implement longer-term solutions. For me, in order for this to occur, in order to have people that are willing to take risk and try to solve the problem, you have to have trust in the environment. If you don't have trust in the environment, then you're not going to get people that are willing to be. When I say risk-taking and originality and problem solving, I automatically think of one word: innovation. And you don't have innovation without trust. So if I don't feel that, I could take a risk because management has my back, then we remain stagnant and we wind up dealing with the same problems every day. But having said that, if I feel management has my back and they're not the CYA management, then I'll take risk and watch how quick the facility starts to grow with longer term solutions and not just quick fixes. So yes, and by the way, again, another thing that's actionable because everybody can see that. If there's a concern and here comes Russ and Russ is able to solve it, people see that and they start to embrace that because next thing you know, Russ starts to build this experience, but also a bit of a reputation behind him. And next thing you know, people, let's say if me and Russ are peers, but Russ seems to be that person that knows how to find that contraband and knows how to solve those issues in yard, whatever it is, people start going to Russ. His own peers start going to Russ because Russ has proven himself to be someone who knows how to solve problems outside the box. And I will say in corrections, you will be thinking outside of the box, especially as you move higher up, but also on the front line. So I thought that's a great one, Russ. Anything you want to say on that, Russ, before we move to the next one?
No, but yeah, I do. I want to, approach the risk issue again, because I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. Believe me, I went through a cowboy phase, and it was just, every rodeo I could possibly get myself into inside prison, sometimes to my detriment. And I probably at one point, took risks that I shouldn't have. Later on, I learned how to, figure out, what risk was worth which, and in which situations you had less of a choice about addressing things through risk taking. So, as you go along the way, really try and figure out, the things that matter, like, disturbance control and alarm response, how to use your baton, how to use your pepper spray, how to use that communication, man. Communication can't be, understated enough. And watch those talented individuals around you who have a reputation in a specific subject matter role, and go and pick their brains, for gosh sakes, because you can really shortcut the amount of time it takes you to learn a skill if you identify someone who's a subject matter expert and they're willing to teach you, or at least if you're just willing to observe.
Yeah, and guys, I like what Russ said, just real quick. I know some people may jump on the verbiage we say because they're not looking at the dialogue in an effort to learn. They're looking at the dialogue in an effort to criticize. So when we say risk, we say calculated risk. And what is the risk based on? Your experience. We're not saying just jump off a bridge. We're saying sometimes you're dealing with situations that are rather novel and unique, and you can't approach it the same way. Sorry about that. You can't approach it the same way. So having said that, you do need people that think outside the box, or else you're going to be facing the same problems every day. And again, I think for us, good people that are in leadership positions or have taken the leadership role, they think long-term. They're not just reactionary. They are trying to be proactive in how they solve a matter. And I also believe in their efforts to solve, I also believe that they're more emotional in doing it, believe it or not. Those that I find that go for those longer term solutions, that try to solve a problem, I believe they bring a level of emotion to it, an emotion that really helps push them through that perseverance. So again, that's definitely a quality that can easily be seen in others. You know what? Just to kind of feed off that, this is another one. Might as well just feed right into this one. Willingness to accept consequences of decision and action. What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Yeah, if you're out there being active, and those of you that have been in the business a while, I hope you'll appreciate what I mean. Is that there's just a number of officers out there that are more active than others. They're the ones that get out there. They're the ones that find the felonies, find the contraband, find the issues on the yard, and they never let up. And sometimes when you're the one that's actually affixing yourself to the point of the spear, there are going to come times where you're going to make mistakes, and just own up to them. Because if you don't, all you will do is put yourself into a position where you will no longer be that active officer. You'll no longer be that person that's willing to affix themselves to the tip of that spear. So, just be willing and honest about the things you do, and try and do everything within a lens of policy, procedure, state law, case law. And, for the most part, things will work out for you as long as you're smart about what it is you're doing.
Yeah, and guys, even when we're talking about the leadership stuff, we're pulling people away from being the leader as determined by your position, but rather being a leader as determined by how people see you. So again, people could be assigned a leadership position and may give them some legitimate power, some level to reward individuals or coerce them, which you don't want. We're looking more of being like a referent leader, someone who is able to emerge as someone that people respect, because I believe that leadership is a process. It's not one way, it's two way, which means that in order for you to be a leader, you have to be seen as one from the people that you supervise. The thing here would accept consequences of decisions and actions. I think this also relates to a level of integrity too. 100%. You're not always going to make a good decision. Sad to say is we're going to make mistakes. It is what it is. But the question is, if you're looking to grow, you have to take onus on the choices that you've made and then go ahead and learn from those mistakes. If you're sitting there and the first thing you do is blame everybody else for your mistakes or failures, all that does is push people away. And I think that's 101. And to be honest with you, this is sad, but I have seen people that there's no pressure, even if they failed, and they're quick to throw people under the bus. So the first thing I look at is the environment. Do we have a trusting environment here? Because there was no pressure here, and that person made an obvious mistake, but for some reason, this person is constantly blaming everyone else. So again, if you want to create an environment where you have people that are willing to step up and take responsibility, then you have to have that trust in play. But either way, integrity. Integrity doesn't happen after you've been caught making a mistake and then stepping up and saying, yeah, I messed up. That was me. It's knowing you made the mistake and stepping up immediately, learning from it. And then whatever the consequences are, the consequences are. And again, I believe that's very actionable. That's seen, but again, this all falls into having a trusting environment. Because I'm going to be honest with you, Russ, if you have a trusting environment, it will, because this is what I hate. And this is just a sidebar real quick. I hate when you treat people who make a mistake on good intent the same as those that fail out of negligence or just don't care. And at that point there, it's like, what the consequences are pretty unfair, because that person, it made sense why they made that decision. And the last thing I want to do is to minimize their efforts in making decisions again. So, again, I like to put that into the environment as well. Okay. We also got, I like this one, Rush, self-confidence and sense of personal identity.
So, if you're going to be a leader, and of course, we've talked about this before, and I don't mean positional leader. If you're going to be a leader, which is someone who has, influence over not just your peers. I felt like during my years that I had a degree of influence, right up through the warden. I can tell you there were times where I had the warden come on the yard and, ask me and my partner about whether we thought it was, safe to, start releasing the yard again. And when you develop, that type of reputation, there's a sense of self-confidence that you have to be able to give input to that kind of a request, that kind of a question. So you should be working to develop self-confidence, not out of arrogance, not out of, some, grandiose sense of self-ego, but out of evaluated experience in that, I've done this before. I'm an expert in this area, and I've worked hard to accomplish the things that I have. And then on top of that, I have to know who I am and what my limitations are. Yes, maybe I'm only an officer. And I hate to use that term, only an officer, because officers are the ones that really, truly run things in most of our institutions. But you have to know and be fulfilling that mantle of authority and responsibility to its fullest extent possible. And I will tell you this right off the bat, not many officers do that. They shirk back. They hold themselves back from that full authority, and they don't ever exercise it, either because they lack self-confidence or they get told things that aren't necessarily true, or they've decided that, they're not in the game up to their neck. And what I mean by that is people get told things all the time. Oh, administration here doesn't have your back. They're out to get you, better not use force. My experience, on the other hand, is that regardless of whether administration had my back, I was secure in who I was. I knew what policy and procedure called for. I was confident about the experience that I'd gleaned up to that point. And so I felt fully confident in exercising all the powers of a correctional peace officer. That is where I would like to see all of you be.
Yeah, and you know what, Russ? What I like about self-confidence and sense of personal identity, and we talked about this many times before, you got to know who you are entering this profession, and be very wary of where you're headed. You got to have a direction of, where what you're planning on doing, but who you're planning on being. Because if you don't have that North Star and this profession, uh, if you come in this profession like a passive job, it's going to destroy you. You have to be intentional with your mental health and well-being. And I think the self-confidence and the strong sense of personal identity helps you remain strong to your core values, but doesn't, not to the point where you're rigid, but enough to know that this is who I am, and I'm not going to go ahead and shake from that foundation. And I think people respect that. I'm going to tell you why people respect that. Because when you have good self-confidence and you have a strong sense of personal identity, you bring a level of consistency to the table. People know what to expect of you. I didn't say from you, what to expect of you, which is a little bit different than from you. From you is, I try to tell people you got to be a little unpredictable in this profession. I get it. But when it comes to this level of confidence and personal identity, there is a consistency. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to have any faith in somebody that's wishy-washy. That one day they're for me, one day they're against me, one day they're for this, one day they're against it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have good, strong core values and you have that North Star, you know where you want to be, that kind of filters everything. And that gives you that level of consistency that's needed to really not just survive in this profession for your own good, but to build a good circle of influence or a good circle of people around you who truly respect who you are because they know who you are and they know what you're about. So I think that's very key. And that's very key even if you're a supervisor. That's very key even if you're, as I said, Russ said, frontline personnel. Because, again, we all need to know what to expect of each other. And granted, I think that comes inwards first. My confidence in myself and who I need to be through each situation and my personal identity. That's powerful. I agree. And again, very actionable, something you can easily see. All right, Russ. Readiness to absorb interpersonal stress.
Okay. Corrections is one of those things that can make you or break you. And it can make you or break you in a lot of different ways. So, your interpersonal stress, with other people, which can be, your bosses, it can be the people you supervise, it can be your peers, it can be the inmates. You have to know that corrections is conflict. All right. And that's not going to change anytime soon because of the nature of the business that we deal in. I think that there's a lot of things that can be improved, but it's never going to be a no conflict scenario. So each day, as you wake up in the morning, as you prepare yourself, you have to be ready to go in there and do a form of battle. Now, is that necessarily going to be, use of force or putting down riots every day? No. Some days it's going to be that, but some days it's just going to maybe be having to, deal with a boss who's, completely out of pocket on some issues. Maybe it's going to be on, IA is looking at you funny over the last use of force that you did. These are things that, regardless of whether we want to or not, we need to welcome them. We need a chance to acquit ourselves in a manner befitting of a corrections professional when those things arise, because it will. You are going to get called on the carpet over some things. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, unless you are the type of officer that always hangs back and never does anything and will always be never remembered for anything that you did. That wasn't me. I wanted to always step forward, as I said before, put up my hand and go in there, with my brothers and sisters and, do battle on whatever was there that day. So there is going to be stress. You have to find the way for you to mitigate that. You have to find a way around it. You have to find a way to sleep at night because there's going to be times when you're not going to get any sleep at all in this profession. But, I think that Anthony and I, over the years, we've talked about a lot of different things that can help you in that. Sometimes it's just, relying on those brothers and sisters, that feeling of being a family, that feeling of, I can count on these people. These people are going to fight with me to the death if necessary. So there is a lot to unpack there. I hope I added something to the subject there.
No, you did. I think for this, it's tough because this is for something that's outside of your control. So the only thing you have to do is now look back and what's the one thing you can control? Your own attitude. For me, I dealt with people that I just couldn't get along with, and I knew people were watching me and how I dealt with that individual. And I think that my persistence to not allow that person to change me gave me respect from those that were watching. Even other leaders who would come up and say, "Yo, Gangi, I like how you handle that situation," because most people would have gotten frustrated and given up. And then here you are, just kind of making your way through it. I remember a scenario one time where I've talked about where I was going back and forth with an inmate. The inmate was doing what they were told, but just kind of always had to have that last word. And one of my partners took me aside and goes, "Is she doing what you want her to do?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Well, at the end of the day, Gange, back away, because right now, you going back and forth arguing over the last word, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't fit right." And then I realized, I said, you know what, at the end of the day, he's right. I'm not going to be able to control that other person, but I need to be able to control myself. That doesn't mean I'm weak. It just means that you got to kind of pick and choose your battles. Not everything is worth all your energy. It's just not. So I agree with you, Russ. I think when it comes to dealing with interpersonal stress, especially those areas of control where you don't have any, like that external concerns, I think, yeah, then you have to look inwards and say, what can I do about myself to help deal with this situation? Because at this point, I can't get through to this individual. And guys, I'm telling you, I'm speaking from example. I really been there, and I literally was hating going to work. And then I said, is this how I want to live my career? No. So if I can't go in and change that individual, then I got to figure out what I can do about myself and then go ahead and adapt and adjust. So that's when you have to be able to, you got to have readiness, because interpersonal stress is pretty much corrections 101. It's corrections 101. All right, 3 more tips. Willingness to tolerate frustration and delay.
I love it when we talk about my Achilles heel. There's nothing I hate more than delay, because it causes me such frustration. I'm a very linear type of person. I'm all about, hey, you know what? We need to go from A to B. Okay, let's do that. And, screw looking at the forest along the way. I don't want to do anything but get from A to B as quickly as possible. And that at times becomes problematic for me, because I don't slow down and I don't see the other things along the way. I don't take them into account, because I merely want to be mission oriented. In corrections, that mission orientation can be very helpful. In my personal life, it can be not so helpful. So I think it's just one of those things that we have to, be able to breathe a little bit easier and take things as they come, and try and exercise patience in a better way. That's really all I can tell you about that. Is it's taken me, decades to get to the point where I kind of have a little bit of ability to do that.
Yeah, I think patience is definitely a virtue. I think all leaders have patience, because, again, a lot of us are thinking more long term, and you're not going for the answer immediately, because maybe the quickest answer isn't always the right answer. So having said that, that doesn't mean that when you're taking time to come up with a decision, you leave people hanging that are waiting for it. You try to do what you can, but in the meantime, I think patience does matter. I think that's one of my flaws. I think that's something I could be better at. Sometimes I find myself where I feel if too much time goes by, and that's probably subjective, I have to run up and hey, what's up with this project? What's happening? Where we at? And it's like, I got to let it go. There's no reason for me not to trust the individuals who are doing it. So, yeah, definitely. I think that's something that's definitely something actionable, something that can easily be seen. And when it comes to frustration, we kind of talked about that earlier, but again, you're going to deal with things you have no control of. So how you react matters because people are watching your reaction. They're watching your reaction. Okay, last two. Ability. This is definitely leadership right here, but ability to influence other people's behavior. But I want to mention something. The way we define leadership is not it's not neutral. It is or amoral. Leadership has to have a moral compass. So the ability to influence other people's behavior, yeah, but you have to have a moral compass behind it in order to, in my mind, to equate to some level of leadership. So again, you have people that did very bad things that can influence people's behavior. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about more of a moral compass in regards to creating some influence. So, Russ, what's your thoughts on that?
So, I think that, in my career, I've had, the fortunate ability, if you will, to influence a lot of different officers, to influence, sergeants and lieutenants and everything else. The one thing I never wanted to be and never aspired to be was, to influence people in a negative way, to, try and cut corners or be corrupt. And for people to think that's cool and try and just, or be a hater, just bring in the hate, hey, how's things going, Hamilton? Oh, living the dream. And yet that's kind of the negative aspect of that we often see where, people are, they're laughed at because, they got that dry sense of humor. I'm not saying that that's always inappropriate. But they hate the profession. They hate everything about it. And they're out there, capping on it and making it humorous, which is fine. But they're not leading people, to a place where there is, a moral concept there about, trying to be the best that we can be in this profession and trying to bring value to the public that relies on us for their safety. It's merely about, how many jokes can I get in? Worse than that, I've seen people led astray by some officers that were, very influential about, doing some things that they shouldn't have been doing, acting out of pocket, doing things that were clearly against the penal code or at least against policy and procedure and being perceived as, being hip. All that kind of thing, I'll never forget, it was actually a really, really good, really good series on TV called The Shield. But man, I thought, yeah, and it was fantastic. And it actually, taught me a lot about thought processes and looking into people's motives. But from the standpoint of what it means to be a law enforcement officer, those guys were totally antithetical, totally violated, the norms, totally violated the oaths. And so, that's kind of one of those things where you have to think, what is it that I stand up for? And, I stand up for my oath. I stand up for the law, even if I don't necessarily agree with it. And I try and function and do my part. That's the kind of influence that I want to have. I tried to extend my influence over people, after I took my badge off. And, and even now, though, I do the rehabilitation and reentry type of thing. I want to give back to my brothers and sisters and try and teach them what I know. I want to be able to influence them to stay true to their oath, to stay true to that North Star philosophy, and not get, taken over by, influences that are negative along the way. Because, and I'm not saying it's everywhere, but, there is corruption out there. There's, some bad things that some bad people have done. But overall, I think we are a net positive, especially for society, because we're in a society right now that has no idea about how to protect themselves. And there's very little standing in between them and the wolves, except for us.
Yeah. And by the way, I have all 7 seasons of The Shield on Blu-ray. I've watched it multiple times.
I'll tell you what, there's, if you want to, just talk about TV for a second, the Shield and NYPD Blue, as far as not how to do things necessarily, but the mindset about figuring things out. There are no 2 better ones that have ever been on TV, in my opinion. I learned so much in just thinking about that, especially NYPD Blue with, people, places, the things they do, the times they do them. I repeat that mantra to myself all the time. And I'll tell you, it made a difference in the amount of contraband that I was getting off the yards.
Yeah, so we stayed clear of Oz. When it comes to influence, obviously influence could be both ways too. I mean, as much as you can influence someone else, they also have an influence on you. But the influence always has to be towards a better good for that individual that you are trying to lead. If it's not, and it's for your own purposes, you might as well just, where's that book on manipulation right there? I mean, because that's pretty much what you're doing. Influencing someone has to be in an effort to help that person reach their greatest potential. I know that for me, when I see people that I look as leaders, the first people I look at are the people that they lead. It's the first people I look at. I look at how empowered they are. What's their motivation? Are they growing under this individual? I think influence is extremely powerful. I think that is truly the definition of leadership, with that moral component, because if I think Maxwell says it best, if you're leading and nobody's following, then you're just taking a walk. So to create influence, and there's so much in that. I mean, to create influence is not just spending time with somebody, it's investing time with them. It's sacrifices that are made along the line. I mean, just, it's influence can only be created through the perspective of the people that you lead, because you can't influence someone if they don't want it. So again, to me, that's definitely actionable, because the people that are next to you, they feel your influence, and that helps you provide it. So yeah, 100% influence is definitely key for emergent leaders or leaders that have been assigned a position of some level of oversight. All right, let me get to this last one. All right, Russ, capacity to structure social interaction systems to the purpose at hand.
Oh man, there's a lot of words in that one. So to me, what this means is that as a leader, but when I see that, I think more about that positional leader, not relying on the position, but having to structure interactions in order to achieve a purpose. So there's a lot of different type of actions that we could talk about here. Some of these are necessarily going to be involved in, having to interact between different parts of your department, be it medical, education, or that kind of thing. There's a lot of animus at times between these, these fighting factions, as they were, because everybody thinks that it's their own little fiefdom that matters most. And nothing could be further from the truth. And I'll be honest, I've gotten guff from medical. I've gotten guff from education and vocations and everything else because my concern is safety and security. They don't necessarily maybe know what safety and security is. So should I just, try and be, indignant or, kind of ticked off at them? No, I need to teach them about what it is that we need, because they need it too. What do I need to do about their particular problems? I need to help them solve them. So that's one of the things that a true leader can really leverage, is trying to bring all together all these disparate factions and try and put things together in such a way that we can all benefit from them.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to get along. As I said before in the one, two ago, corrections is conflict. But that doesn't mean that conflict should be allowed to fester, especially in these relationships that we need to develop with these other departments. So when we structure these things that we need to do, when we need to practice together, when we need to talk about, different departments' needs, that's one way that we can do it. And so we need to address those things and, try and make sure that we're all staying on the same page and teach them how to think like an officer a little bit, because some of these people, they have no idea about what an inmate does, about what an addict does, about what a gang member does. And so, give them a little bit of that instruction so they can recognize things like being played, being manipulated, and so forth. And in the end, that will really pay off.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. I agree with you. I mean, this is more about having the bigger picture in mind and then seeing how it all connects. For me, I always try to bring everybody to the table, even when it comes to problem solving. I try to think upstream, which as administration, I got tons of resources, department head experts that I could really look at a problem collectively. Really take a look at a problem from so many different angles. And then when we come with a solution, it really is a good collective strategic solution. And again, that's taking kind of advantage of the system that I have in play for me, where if I have a concern, I'm able to bring all parties that could be involved in that concern all to the table, and we could just throw a lot of stuff out there and try to see where it all blends. But the key for that as well is to make sure that we all, like Russ said, benefit from whatever solution is brought to the table. But the also key about that, there's another benefit, is also it creates buy-in, because now you have all departments involved and they want to see it succeed. So they're going to put more of an effort forward, as opposed to only going to that one department and, you only get the buy-in from the one side. So I think that this is something that if you're able to do that, this will always increase your problem solving. But I think that this really does definitely showcase some level of leadership ability, because to bring people together, to get them on one page and then move forward with a solution, that is not easy. So to be able to do that, whether you're, a peer or whether you're a supervisor looking down, that's definitely someone that's taken the torch. And again, for me, you get that respect, because I know that's not easy, because everybody sometimes has their own motives, their own gains, and you have to bring people together based on what's not best for the department, but what's best for the facility as a whole. I mean, I remember someone telling me, who do you serve more, the team you supervise or the team you're a part of? And it's the team you're a part of. That's how you grow and you elevate. So I thought that was, something that stuck with me. Hey, Rush, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, I thought that was a great conversation. It's always fun, maybe it's no longer out of my comfort zone, just, winging things, anymore. But, I always enjoy doing that, and not necessarily knowing, everything that you're going to, put out there or ask me to talk about. But like I said earlier, people should be putting themselves in that position, because it makes you stronger. It makes me stronger as a speaker here, as a thinker, as someone to, be able to, lead some officers, even though, I'm not badge heavy anymore.
Yeah, well, but you understand the system, though. That's the key. And we're going to do some more scenario-based shows. That went well last time, so we got to create some more scenarios and then just shoot the shit with a panel. As always, guys, it's a quick little show about leadership. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.